Joining us on the show once again today is a man I can proudly call a returning champion to this podcast. Of course, his team delivered one of the strongest performances of the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. They went to San Diego and, over the course of 8 hours, ultimately earned a 4-2 victory to knock off the Toreros and advance to the round of 16. Joining us on the podcast to help break that down and talk about his USC Trojan season, it's USC men's tennis head coach Brett Masi. Coach, it is always good to see your smiling face. Welcome back to the program. It's got to feel good, right? Another week to play for you and the Trojans. How's it going out in LA?
Nice to get some sunshine. It rained again yesterday as we had to dry the courts to practice. It's like, wow, we got to endure another rain delay. But no, obviously to keep playing and keep practicing is well worth it. And our guys, valiant effort by them down there over the weekend, and just impressed with their mental fortitude to get through that and persevere. And yeah, we're excited to now keep playing on.
Yeah, no, so impressive. And let's just start right with that match because certainly anyone who tuned into our broadcast feed know it was the final match of the opening weekend, one we all got to focus in on because of the multiple rain delays. And, again, getting to see the cameras, there were times when it looked like the courts were dry. Then a sprinkle came, then again, and then another rainstorm came. What's that conversation like with your guys? What was the message? Because clearly, anyone who saw the match, you owned the 30 minutes post rain delay and were able to close things out. Down 2-love, but up in some places. What was your message to the guys, and ultimately, how would you judge their execution?
Well, first of all, just like great job on their part to get us to that point. I mean, it was over 2 hours of play, and we, had only had 3 points on the board. Carl had just clinched his match against Barut, and came back from 3-love down in the second, and just had a good dominant performance from there. So that honestly, I think that was like a huge piece of it. And then like when the rain delay came, we were actually like humming. I mean, I think Oscar turned around, ran around, hit an inside out forehand winner on a second serve to put up 30-love. And I'm thinking like going, shoot, it's about to be 2-all. We're going, we just held to go up 5-4 on the third on that court. And then Peter, I think, just held to make it 5-all. It was like all these things were just, coming together. And then, of course the rain comes and you go inside and, you just got to obviously praise your guys for what they're doing. You tell them to take their shoes off, change clothes, let's get food, kind of get those things all prepared. And we all, started to relax after we kind of just broke down like where everybody was. Guys were in there watching, we were lucky in a classroom that they let us have, and we pulled down you know, the, uh,
Projector
the
screen or whatever,
screen,
right?
the projector screens, and guys were like watching the Casper Ruud highlights and watching darts on TV, and just kind of hanging out. You know, I went back and forth. I probably logged in more steps going back and forth to the courts, just trying to see what was going on and talking to them. And, I was kind of managing that aspect of things. Mark and Bryce were kind of just managing whether it's getting food or just keeping the guys, at ease. And yeah, it was just, for 2 hours we did nothing. Then when we walked up to the courts thinking we were going to start, we had to go back. It's kind of just again like a back and forth, of are we playing, are we not playing? But the whole time our guys were loose, our guys were excited. I think that's where we handled it really well, knowing that we were in a pretty good position.
Yeah, no, and it's a credit to you guys again. Carl flipping that second set as he did and getting off the court, just putting a point on the board, particularly when it looked like Tarvid was going to knock out Peter in straight sets, serving for that match there, and Peter manages to flip things. A lot of different places I could start, but I guess where I want to start is even in relation to that match. If I'd have told you February 2nd, after the match against Cal, when you guys were 3-3 and seemingly no one was healthy, that you would be in this position now come May 7th with another match to play here this season, what do you think you would have answered to me in that moment? What would you have said?
I would say I'm not like completely shocked. I mean, look, Alex, we've got a very young team. We've started four freshmen at times.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you guys talk a lot about just, freshman experience, and obviously that's, obviously always really a question mark. I mean, if you go back to a lot of our matches, I mean, I could start with Stanford won the doubles point up five first sets. Cal won the doubles point up four first sets, lose both of those. USD, we won four first sets the time before. a handful of other ones besides the UCLA wins that we've had. We've been a lot of these teams, and it's to say that I'm shocked that we are capable of doing it. No, I'm not. But given our struggles, maybe again we finally lesson learned, and the guys are finally it's paying off. They're like, okay, we've learned from our mistakes, we've grown through the process, and now I told the guys at the beginning of this, after we lost to Michigan State at Ohio State during Big Tens, I said, guys, this is when Trojans shine. This is when it matters the most. This is what it means. We got to level up. It's time to start raising the bar, and obviously we showed it last weekend. So, to say that, like, am I surprised? No, but obviously, like, it could be 50-50 at the same time. So, we've had our chances throughout the year.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it feels like, especially at some of the younger pieces, continue to improve, and it gets back to that San Diego match. First of all, is he a Nate or a Nathan? This is a big question.
I mean, we go by Nate. It's Nathan,
Yeah.
but we say Nate,
All right.
for short, and
That's what I needed to know
no
because
one says Nathan.
yeah, or Nathaniel. Maybe he throws it in there at the end as well. Look, 12-9 overall in the year, but to get that win over a guy in Danilov who just does not lose a lot of dual matches, particularly at home. Talk to me about his level, and again, asking a freshman to play too. Like, what have you seen from him this season?
Yeah, I mean, he's had some of those similar circumstances. I mean, up 5-1 in the up a set and a break, I think, against Henry Van Schulenberg,
Mm-hmm.
and like doesn't understand why he loses that match. He played three against them. He loses to uh what's his name from Cal that plays three. I'm blanking on his name. He was up 5-1 in the first on him. He had a multitude of these types of matches where he's been winning, and you can see his level. Now he's had his low moments as well. Again, he's freshman. Freshmen, have to learn, and but to see his level, I mean, you watched it on the film. I mean, to beat Ozan Barris last, I think that is where I think it really his confidence kicked in. Was last week or 2 weeks ago now when he beats Ozan at Big Tens, and you just kind of see that, like, holy cow, with this guy, and we already knew this, but his level is like top tier.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see this kid in a year from now and be like, I'm not surprised if he's top 10, top five in the country.
Mm-hmm.
He just has that game. He has that ability. He has that athleticism. And, he's learning that this is a college game. It's not, you're not on the pro tour. You're not playing a challenger. And, that's why you take your losses to Henry Van Schulenberg, who's a 6-year senior that's played number one. Those guys have experience, and you've got to learn those, and take your licks from time to time. So, but to show up in that moment, yeah, I mean, as a freshman, well done.
Yeah.
Just, hats off.
So impressive, and like the energy he played with as well. Like, there's definitely a little college tennis zing to him. Anyone who's gotten to see him play, and again, talking about experience, you do have two seniors in Carl, in Peter, who both put together really impressive seasons. Carl 17-5, probably his best year on the job. I mean, for to go 13-4 at the top spot is just a brutal task for anyone. That's what Peter was able to do this season, and just again to have those two experience pieces, given even Ike Banko or Waitman, like I forget which one of them is the junior, sophomore technically, but still relatively new, particularly given all the injuries in their career. How important have those seniors been to getting you to this point?
I mean, they're probably the reason why we're here. I mean, they're Peter last year to have the turmoil that he went through playing at one and having to, hoping to play at two, and then Steph gets hurt and he's, having to, take the lumps there, and he just wasn't very confident and had, it was a really tough season on him. And then even stretched into the fall where he still wasn't playing that confidently. And then he won a couple UTRs at the end of the fall and into this, leading into the dual match season, and just hit the ground running, and just really has been an amazing force for us at the top spot. Because as you know, like, if you can win a point at one or at two on any given match, you're putting yourself in a good spot. And for him to have that many wins and not take any losses really throughout the year, like, that's just meant a lot to us. And Carl, just being a steady force in the middle of the lineup at any position we throw him at. We joke with him, he's Nemo. He just keeps swimming. And the guy, he's not going to impress you out there with his ball striking or do anything like that, but the guy's going to sneak into the net. He's going to hit a little chip. He's going to hit a little dump forehand cross. He's going to do all these, like, he's going to pop a serve 130 at times. And you just like go, who is this guy? And, Carl just keeps you on your heels. And, we've just been really fortunate that those guys have played really good ball when it's mattered.
Yeah, no, they've both been excellent, and certainly, again, I feel like Carl thrived in front of that San Diego crowd on Sunday night, and certainly seemed to be enjoying himself. And yeah, again, for Peter to prevent Tarvit from putting that third point on the board, it just makes life easier for everyone. By the way, I almost went with Maserati Marazi, but Elizabeth Scotty was the
Marazzi.
yeah. Yeah. The problem was that Elizabeth Scotty was the Maserati, and she's again she's got the rings, so it's still her. He's got to go chase her if he wants that title.
Yeah.
But for him to get that clinch as well against a senior, like on the road, round two, I guess, and I know I alluded to this earlier, but this is such a young group, particularly coming off of last season. Like how just that youthful exuberance, how refreshing has that been around the program?
Yeah, I think sometimes whenever you get new blood in, it kind of, you just said it, rejuvenates and gave us kind of a little bit of a kickstart. Obviously bringing in guys like Nathan and, Mateo, and then you have Connor and Niels, like four freshmen. That youth just like brings, it makes you feel refreshed. And honestly, all four of those guys have just been awesome in terms of their, I would say, their presence in the locker room or presence on the court. Like they keep everything pretty light and fun and enjoying. And like you could see like a good group core kind of forming here for us. And it's fun to go out to practice every single day and work with them. Because they're listening, they're wanting to learn, they're wanting to improve, and that just, again, maybe it takes 4 months, sometimes it takes a year. Like you know, I kind of I was talking to Case Van Hoff about this because he always asks, he goes, Brett, give me like a parallel to like when I was with you and when I was his assistant. We had a year like kind of like last year for us where we went 8-15, and Peter and I did, and then the next year we brought in Rob and we brought in Magnus and we brought in a few others, and we went quarterfinal national championship. And like Case, like, kind of give me that kind of parallel to that. And I said, like, it honestly feels like that. We had that year last year. We don't make the tournament. Bad season for us. We bring in two guys like Nathan and Mateo, in January, just like we brought in Mag and Rob. And next thing you know, like things start to turn around and you start to feel like there's a little bit different, culture and environment going through the locker room. And, it's been nice to have. And I think that's where we're starting to get to, in all honesty.
Yeah, I love to hear that. One more time, will you say the last name? It's Marazzi.
Marazzi, Italian. He's Italian, but he runs by the Spanish flag. It's a common joke for us because he wants to say that he's Spanish because of the football, and then he loves his Italian food. So
Best of both worlds. No, not only culture, but cultured, as we learn how to pronounce that correctly. So I appreciate
yes,
that. And yeah, no, I can only imagine what it has been like. And by the way, you've gotten plenty of time to spend with each other on the road, given first season in the Big Ten. What was that like? What was that experience like adjusting to it? How do you think the team handled it?
I would say that's where we probably take a C on on that one. Yeah, we took our lumps there. I mean, the first trip going to Northwestern and Illinois, not too bad, just because direct flight in. After that, it was a hassle. In all honesty, I mean, going to Penn State, it took us 30 hours to get there. We had a delay in, like, trains, planes, automobiles on that one, and then coming back, even like delays, and then going back when we went to Nebraska and going back to Wisconsin and then going to Ohio State. Every time we had to do connecting cities, we just ran into issues. 2 hour delays. Oh, flight canceled. Oh, you got to drive to Wisconsin. And I just don't know if we handled just like that back and forth. I mean, we traveled 3 times in 5 weeks, and you know, getting there on a Wednesday night late, practicing Thursday, play Friday, come home, go then travel the next day, play Sunday, get home late, take Monday off, Tuesday, Wednesday, play again. I think it just we weren't ready for it and we weren't up for it. If I were to go back and maybe do things differently in a couple of years when we have the same travel schedule, I'll probably look at it, and learn from it. But maybe some of it again is the mental fortitude that we've gotten to today, and if we take those lumps back then to have the success now, obviously I'll take it.
Yeah. Did you have to coach differently at all this season? And what I mean by that is I have played, Midwest man. Anyone who's watching this on YouTube sees the M on the hat, so no giveaway there. Courts are different. Like you were very kind in having me and Gil Gross out to the USC courts where we got to hit, and all I could say is, oh, I get it now with Steph because like you have to hit like he does to hit a winner on these courts. They're very very slow for a Midwest man. That's not the case when you're going to Ohio State or to Penn State, where you're going to deal with some quicker conditions, more indoor tennis. Like, did you guys have to adjust, saying, hey, like we might have to switch up our style here this year, given where we're playing?
I mean, I think we've always prided ourselves here of looking to be transitional type players
Sure.
and a team. I think we've had to teach this team, and it's starting to again. It wasn't going and working for us right away, and guys were getting a little frustrated with like the working on transitioning to the net or just taking time away in general. But I think we're starting to get to that. But yeah, you're definitely right. If you're going to play indoor tennis, it's whoever can kind of take a little bit more of an aggressive mentality and win the points at the net or coming forward or play a little bit more with like, fast paced idea like a serve plus one or whatever. Like we got lucky enough to play Penn State outside. I definitely was thankful for that because playing on that four-court bubble is not easy. Ohio State's always, it's obviously nicer conditions now with that indoor facility, but still always, never easy to win there, as we all know. Wisconsin, we had to play there, and those were faster courts. Yeah, we we definitely take a little bit more of approach to like really focusing on our serve and focusing on the return or working on the net and maybe serving volleying a little bit more in doubles and maybe you want it you're used to those types of things are definitely like I would say in practice plans and at least like in their ear about to like make sure that they're focusing on it. But it's you still got to be comfortable and you got to maybe recruit players that are going to be able to want to play in that environment too.
Yeah. In that spirit, obviously, we've talked about the new members of the team, new members of the coaching staff. You bring in Mark Lucero as your new associate head coach. How has bringing him on board helped this group get to where you guys are?
I think he just keeps them in check and they have the respect knowing of like when they say they want to go play pro and they want to go be this person and then they act differently or they do things in a different matter. He's like, you're telling me you want to be a pro and you can't handle traveling to the Midwest for 3 days or you don't, you're saying that you want to be a pro and you're just showing up to practice 15 minutes ahead of time. Like those types of things I think come with a little more validity just because of his experience and his expertise and the credibility there. And it's definitely paid off. I mean, a little bit different practices. I've given him more of the reins when it comes to just I would say player development. I mean, in this new era of college athletics, like I've had to obviously change my hat a lot, on what I do and how I do things. And there's just not enough time in the day to like do everything. And if I wouldn't give Mark the reins and like I give basically Mark and Bryce like a lot of credit to their player development this year because they're the one. I mean, we're all three out there. Don't get me wrong, but like it's their practice plans, it's their preparations. A lot of times of like this is what we're going to do today, and that to me has like helped me a lot get to focus on the things that I need to do as well to keep this boat running in the right direction. And it's been awesome to have. And obviously we're close in age. We grew up together here in Southern California. We knew each other really well already. I think I tried hiring him twice before and it never really worked out. Once at San Diego and maybe once when I first got the job here, we were talking a little bit, but it it's been awesome having him a part of the staff and Bryce and him. I mean, fun fact is he coached Bryce at the USTA Center back when Bryce was 10 and 12 years old, and just fun to have kind of like that kind of family environment with the three of us. So it's been really cool.
Very fun. Yeah, I texted all of you guys looking for some ammo for the broadcast and the rain delay, and maybe this will give you some insight into what he and I usually text about, but he's very funny, sneaky funny. And I was like, give me a good quote. He's like, what do you guys need to do to win the match? And he goes, register to vote. And I was like, that's a really good joke. I was like, you got me. And so, yeah, again, certainly one of the best minds in tennis and a great addition to the staff. You've seen that play out and how your guys have gotten better this season. Is there one match from this year you would point to where you would say whether it's your proudest, you learned the most about the guys this year? What's the one match that stands out in 2025?
Um, just in terms of like where we made a turn, or just like what are experiences that we like and wins.
Whichever you'd prefer. You know my questions
Um,
don't have real meaning.
I mean, honestly, like the last match against USD, just seeing their how we again came out after the rain delay, that to me like showed our biggest, I would say, growth, and that's what I always tell the guys. I someone asked me after Friday. Sorry, I'm going to go a long way with this answer
Please.
because the easy answers are against UCLA,
Yeah.
um, and I mean we'll get to that at some point, I'm sure. Um, but someone asked me, it was actually Ed Collins, the old coach at USD years ago. He goes, "You got to be happy." And after we beat Arizona State, and I go, and he said, "You're never happy. You never smile." I was like, "Ed, like I don't get happy at wins anymore." And he's like, he didn't understand why. And he left it there. And then the next day, I told the guys like I was actually more happy with the process of beating how you guys took on Arizona State than the actual win itself, because it actually showed me what you guys have learned and how you guys are going about your business. And then the same thing on Sunday. You know, that was very tough for me in a lot of ways. I'll be a little open, like to beat Ryan and beat him on those courts. Like that's really not that easy to beat one of your best friends and a guy that you mentored and a guy that was your assistant. Those are never easy to have those wins. Obviously, I'm gonna, it's a business and that's what we got to go out and do. And you got to go beat your opponent. And but like I'm more thankful and happy with how my guys performed and how they took on the task at hand than the win itself. Like those types of things, like unless you win one of these things behind me, those are the ultimate things that you play for, especially when you come here. But like that type of happiness to me comes from how our guys like took on the challenge and how they grew and how they did that. And that was one of those moments was that last weekend. And another one was when we beat UCLA at home about a month and a half ago. Our guys just showed great courage and great fight. We came from a 4 sets down and a doubles point down, and we took that on, and we beat them. And you're just happy when your team fights that hard and puts. We had a great crowd in front of us. You had the bell ringing. You had, you know, everybody up in arms, like from the UCLA side. You had, a great crowd, and it's just those are fun environments that you want your guys to get in front of and experience.
Yeah.
So, those are some great moments for me.
Yeah, and it's always a special season when USC and UCLA play 3 times in one year because that means there's some sort of trophy on the line in that third matchup. And again, you're right. I do want to get back to that. One thing I got to spice things up for all of you coaches here this year. If you could reallocate time from this season to doing one thing more with your group in practice, what might that thing be?
Oh wow. Um, reallocate more time to.
Could be on court, could be off court. They need to work on their card skills. Like I'm open to anything.
It team chemistry is a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
And I think our guys this year have done a really good job with it. I think we've enjoyed ourselves more in the last 2 or 3 weeks on the road, like playing poker, in the night before, like things like that. I do wish like maybe we had a little bit more. We did a little bit more. These guys, I think, do hang out a lot on their own, but like as coaches with them, I think if I could slow down the clock and actually just get more of those types of things, because I feel like every day you're rushing to like go do an individual, then go to a meeting, then go to practice, and then like you're out the door like in LA, like you're rushing to like not sit in an hour and a half of traffic. I wish I could just slow down and like get to just do those little things with them, and spend that time with them, because those are valuable moments. And like just sit out on sit out on the courts afterwards and stretch for 15, 20 minutes and just talk about the day or talk about their life or whatever. Like those things to me, I think are things that are really valuable, especially when you're trying to grow and you're trying to build a program.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like Oscar, sneaky good poker player.
Oh yeah, he's I mean he's a very good darts player. So
That checks out.
he loves his yeah his bar games and things like that for sure.
That's funny. That checks out. I like that. No, that's fun. Well, before we get back to this weekend, obviously this week, unfortunately, I'm sure for all of you coaches, is Portal Week where it opens, and that becomes something. Obviously, I'm sure all of you have an eye on. Now in 2025, as it's become normalized, how do you consider the portal as you go about roster construction?
I think it's like you want to use it as a filler. I think if you're using it as like a complete overhaul and like it makes it hard. I mean, I look at like a year ago, our men's basketball coach, he take, Musselman, he comes in from Arkansas and he has one player on his roster. How are you supposed to develop a good team after one, you have to put 10 or 12 guys on a team. Like if you're doing that 4 or 5 guys every year and you're bringing in new players, it's going to make it really challenging to like get them all to mesh. I think if you're trying to like fill in the piece or that last little bit, I think that's a good idea. But like, look, I'll use Ryan's team for example down at USD. Like he didn't go portal hunting. He didn't go back when COVID hit and guys were, teams were filling their rosters with kids that had extra years. He just went and got, his 5 or 6 guys. They took their lumps, their freshman and sophomore years. This year, their junior year, they have a killer year. And then next year they're set up to have another killer year, you know? And I think that development of trying to have 5 or 6 guys that all grow together pays off for you in the long run. If you try to cheat the system, you try to go get quick fixes, sometimes it can work for you, obviously, and sometimes it could obviously hurt you. And, you know, we're definitely ones that, we'll try to look and see if there's good pieces out there, but they've got to be the right fit. You know, in this day and age, you got to have like 8 to 10 guys that are all working in the same direction, even in an individual sport like tennis. If it's not working that way, then it makes it really hard to like go out there and have a productive, team. So, we'll look at it and but I'm looking for something that is going to be long term and try to develop that way.
No, it makes sense. And again, that so much of your group this season gets to come back together next year has to be something you guys are excited about in LA. In that similar theme, though, one thing I want to ask every coach, particularly on the men's side, and I've said this before, so sorry, listeners. I feel like last offseason was the wild, wild west, where you would hear numbers being thrown out there and you're like, stop it. Like, that's not true. Like, it just felt like overinflation through the roof of what was being thrown around. And yet, it also made pretty clear to me, at least, that NIL piece is a part of a conversation in recruiting now, no matter what it be, freshman or someone in the portal. How prevalent is that part of the conversation for you with recruits?
I mean, it's definitely, I mean, look, there's 200 to 250 kids in the portal as of yesterday that jumped in since Monday. Like, they're not just doing it to go and jump in and see if they can go to a different school. A lot of these kids, they know that the house settlement hasn't been finished yet, and they're going to look and see if there's a payday that they can go out and get for some of them. And it's part of the business, and you got to be ready for it. Um, and it's the new age. Like whether I like it or I don't, isn't the topic. It's just part of the business. Like I said, I wear different hats now. I act a little bit more as a general manager, and you got to see what you can do. And sometimes you can fit those and be the right fit for a guy, and sometimes you can't. And you got to understand that the business is different now. Like the day and age of like come to USC because it's one of the best academic schools in the country. It's got a great alumni base. It's obviously like, we've got the, 21 national titles. That stuff like is great if you're on even playing ground with every other school across the country, then you kind of can work your way. But if, someone's throwing again absurd amount of money and all these other things, like all those things don't mean as much anymore. And I think that's what's a little sad about the whole thing, in all honesty, if we want to really dig deep into it. But again, it's part of the system, and we got to play ball, at times, and we have it in some cases, but in others, like you just got to pass and say sorry, we're not able to do this.
Well, no, I think that's fair perspective. It's just the reality we live in. The reality, by the way, we live in for at least the next week, but then the settlement could be settled, and then there could be new rules, and then we're going to give everyone 5 years of eligibility or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I appreciate your perspective on that. My last two questions for you. I'm going to ask you to put on the pundit hat here. I know you, so I know I don't have to name the matchups for you. But if you weren't so focused on UCLA here this weekend, pick a different round of 16 match. Any of them you'd like. Which intrigues you most on the men's side and why?
Okay, we've got
Tennessee,
and
Texas. I can run you through them
Tennessee,
if you
Texas.
need.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I've got Tennessee, Texas. We've got Wake Forest, A&M, NC State, Columbia. You've got Virginia, Tennessee, Arizona, Virginia, Tennessee, the women's side. So brain not fully broken. Virginia, Arizona, Ohio State, Mississippi State, TCU, UCF, and Stanford, South Carolina.
Man, there's a few like good matchups there, like the TCU UCF. That's a rubber match.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Texas, they're split now, right? That's another rubber match,
Yeah. Or
right?
I think Texas
Then
got them in the regular season, but it was very, very close in both.
oh, really? I
Yeah.
thought Tennessee beat Texas in the regular season.
They lost to Georgia. Or they beat Georgia. Was that the same weekend as Tennessee and Tennessee got them? You're probably
I think
right.
Yeah, so like there's another good rubber match. I
Yeah.
think you have Columbia, NC State is a sneaky one up there in New York
Take
because
two as
it's
well.
take two as well. Yeah, Arizona, Virginia. There's some spicy ones, as you like to say.
It's good.
You
There's
know,
spice. Yeah.
there's some spice. I don't think there's anyone more spicy than us in Westwood this weekend, just because of the history
Yeah.
behind it all. But yeah, if I were to take one out of all those, um, honestly, like I'm pretty intrigued um, by that Virginia Arizona match. I think that's going to be a fun battle.
I think Colton versus Rafa should be flexed to ESPN just solo. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like we're gonna throw that on there. By the way, as a Pac-12 man, your Arizona, UCLA, Stanford, all winning tournament championships. Put a smile on your face.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it just shows that we've always had great tennis out here, and I know that a lot of things have moved east through college athletics in general. But yeah, it's great to see like West Coast representation and just teams just doing really really well. I mean, look at this year, probably one of the. When would you say that we would have had what four host schools on the West Coast and none of them were UCLA or USC?
It's
Like crazy, right?
great.
We get to that point where we get six of us out here. That's gonna make the NCAA actually have to fly some schools some places at times. Because that makes it all like in all honesty with that too. If we don't start hosting, like we can start going to Stanford and Cal and Arizona. Like that makes our regionals really challenging. And I hope the NCAA at some point really we can get to more of a true integrity of the draw because that could really I would say hurt our sport with like the right teams getting to certain rounds and you know and things like that because I just would like to see the best teams always keep playing.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair, certainly. And yeah, we talk about the spice factor. Yeah, USC, UCLA, matchup number 3 of the season. Obviously, you guys are 2-0 against them this year. You were able to go there and earn a victory earlier in the season. Obviously, the thrill in one at home as well. No secrets between these two teams. I'm curious, and I'm asking this of every coach, what you view as their biggest strength and what it's going to take for your guys to knock them off again.
I would say their biggest strength is the middle of their lineup. Now with having with Spencer back in there, they're pretty tough there, 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4, 5. Like obviously, Emmons had an outstanding year. Really impressed with what he's been able to do. You know, and then they just have good depth in there. I mean, look, I think we know we're going to have some certain spots that we got to go out and win, and if we're going to make this happen, obviously, those are things that we continue to talk about of where we match up well against them and where they're going to match up against us, and but at the end of the day, like. it doesn't matter if they're 50 in the country, we're one in the country, we're 10 in the country, they're eight in the country, whatever the rankings are. When you play USC UCLA, it's the number one thing that always matters is who handles the pressure and who handles the moment the best. And usually that, you know, that little bit of the rivalry, like, and how you handle that pressure is what probably is the X factor at the end of the day. And I think I think both teams have fought really hard in both matches, and both were 4-3, so neither one of them was like a slam dunk either way. I just feel like in the bigger moments, we did a good job of winning some third sets and playing raising our level at the right moment. Who's to say what's going to happen on Friday? But that's to me going to be the other, again, the X factor when it comes to Friday is who's going to handle that moment again the best.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fantastic. It always is when you two go head to head. It's got to be nice to sleep in your own bed for an extra week as well. No flight needed for this one. Maybe you take the chopper from campus to campus just to avoid the traffic. But
Yeah, that could take a couple hours too, the traffic.
this is true. There could be air traffic. But no, again, certainly what a win it was last weekend, and always fun when it's a USC Trojan run in the postseason, because obviously anyone knows the history knows when you guys get hot, usually trophies end up in the case. So certainly, head coach Brett Masi, appreciate you as always taking the time to chat. Very much looking forward to watching the battle this weekend, and thank you as always for coming on the show.
Thanks, Alex.
Record